And a good evening to you, Ted Langdell, live in our Yuba-Sutter newsroom in Marysville, Ted Langdell, Yuba-Sutter.live, and this is a 7:05 p.m. Lake Almanor earthquake report. As you may have felt or been otherwise aware, there have been a series of earthquakes in Lake Almanor this afternoon, beginning about 4:20 this afternoon. But surprisingly, little damage has occurred, despite this 5.5 magnitude quake in the middle of the south central portion of Lake Almanor, and a series of aftershocks since then ranging from 2.5 to 3.0. The 911 center in Susanville says it has had surprisingly few damage reports, not what they expected, especially since a 5.7 quake in May of 2013 did do significant damage. We'll tell you a little bit about that in just a second. But today, a gas leak and damage to a cabin was reported at the Plumas Pines Resort, which is on the west shore. Also, a tree fell into a house on the peninsula, and alarms went off around the lake. The Plumas County Sheriff's Office also told us they had very few calls. The quake was felt in widely separated parts of Northern California, including many reports in Yuba and Sutter counties. That initial quake was also felt, as you can see from these little squares. The squares are reports of where the earthquake was felt. We're going to zoom in a little bit here just to give you a little bit better idea, since if you're watching on a phone, it's not the biggest screen in the world. But as you can see, there were reports in Yuba and Sutter counties. This is over near Lake Oroville. There were a number of reports in the Oroville area. And as we zoom out a little bit and scroll up a little bit closer to the epicenter, you can see reports from Shingletown over in the Redding area. There were reports in the Reno and Sparks area as well. It was felt in various parts of Yuba and Sutter counties. We felt it swaying and watched some clothing sway on a clothes rack. People in Sparks, Nevada, as I mentioned earlier, and it looks like around parts of Lake Tahoe. This is the places where the quake was reported and the intensity of the quake. For example, as you can see here, it was 123 kilometers. One response. For all I know, that might be mine. There were 4 responses in Yuba City. One response north of Yuba City, basically near Live Oak, and one report south of there. But as you can see, quite a few in the Lincoln and Roseville area. A friend of mine also reported that he felt it while he was sitting in his car outside of a Bel Air grocery store in Antelope. There were also reports not just in Sacramento, but as far south as Stockton, in San Francisco, and in San Jose as well. It looks like these were reported as being 2 or 3 on the measurement scale. This same Lake Almanor area had damage from a 5.7 quake in May of 2013. That's May 23rd of 2013. Let's take a look, though. This was the initial quake that we saw here. And this was the 5.5 quake that happened at about 4:20 this afternoon, and it triggered an earthquake alert on many cell phones around Northern California. Then there were a series of 2.8, 2.5, 2.3 earthquakes, also a 3.0 earthquake. These have been following along in the last hour or so. Meantime, back to that earthquake that occurred in 2013, the Plumas County Board of Supervisors declared an emergency in 2013 and reported over $1 million in damage, with 60 homes damaged in the Lake Almanor Basin back 10 years ago, or almost 10 years ago. They also provided methods of how to get your groundwater well tested. Some reports indicated that the groundwater had turned cloudy. There were other reports of damage and shaking. For example, they located where the fault was within the lake and reported that the 2013 earthquake 10 years ago cracked foundations, broke chimneys, ruptured plumbing around Lake Almanor. A survey canvassed communities around the lake in the south and east for earthquake damage and added to reports from people who reported, "Did you feel it?" and also to a set of damage reports that were collected by the Plumas County Office of Emergency Services. Back 10 years ago, 3 communities suffered some significant damage. In Lake Almanor West, which was 14 kilometers from the hypocenter, one wood frame house was shifted off its foundation. The cripple wall of another house was racked back in 2013, and water and gas pipes in 5 houses were ruptured. That damage indicated that the 2013 quake approached MMI 8 in the Lake Almanor Country Club area, which was about 10 kilometers away from the center of the quake. More than 40 chimneys were cracked back in 2013, broken, collapsed. A coupling for the municipal water tank was ruptured back then, and a 200-foot-long fissure opened on a slope facing the lake. All that was reported in the meeting of the American Geophysical Union fall meeting of 2013, and it was published in December of that year. Now, Lake Almanor itself is a lake that was formed initially back in 2014, or I should say in 1914. It was formed by the then Great Western Power Company, and a valley meadow was flooded. A larger dam was built in 1926 and 27, creating a lake nearly twice the size of the lake that existed back then, and it's what we currently see. Looks like that, basically, if viewed from the sky. It's 90 feet deep at its deepest point, and these quakes that we were seeing today were not all that deep. So you get some idea about how close to the center. For example, 6.6 kilometers is the deepest one. The initial earthquake at 5.5 today, that was 5.5 on the scale, was about 1.5 kilometers. And then we had several others that were very, very near the surface, 0.8 or right at the surface of the lake, 0.3, 1.2, 1.3 kilometers below, and so forth. So it's been a pretty active day around Lake Almanor with these earthquakes. So far, no aftershocks reported in the last hour or so, but it's been active around the Pacific Rim and elsewhere. There's been also some earthquakes in Texas, actually, today. So that's the story for you from Yuba-Sutter.live, our Lake Almanor earthquake report. I'm Ted Langdell, and we hope that this has been helpful to you. If you find reports like this are useful, you can help give us some support. There is a link in the text below the video that you're watching now. Go scroll down for that, take a look, click on it, and help support what we do for you. Live in our Marysville newsroom, I'm Ted Langdell, and you've been watching Yuba-Sutter.live on Facebook and on YouTube and on Yuba-Sutter.live.